Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Offbend Podcast, your show for the latest industry news, headlines, and Offbend related stories and antics and updates and things like that. We are your hosts, Hayden and Carson, two of the founders of Offbend, and we really appreciate you guys joining us again. So we got a good one for you today. We got a lot of content, a lot of good things to talk about. I think a lot of interesting conversations to have, even some fun ones as well. Dive right into our industry headline segment, as we always do. For the first one here, I've got Fantastic Four: First Steps is crushing at the box office. This movie came out officially last Friday. I saw it at the early previews on Thursday evening. And we're going to be reviewing this later on in the pod as well, so I won't go too much into my thoughts right now. But the movie opened to 118 million domestically and over 100 million internationally. So in terms of worldwide, it was over a $200 million opening weekend, which is the biggest since Spider-Man No Way Home, which obviously made over $1 billion total, and it was one of my favorite Marvel movies ever, just because of the nostalgia factor. But this is Marvel's first major title in phase 6, as it said. Not that that really means too much right now. It's mostly semantics, but it does serve as kind of a new foundation after years and years of mediocre box office fatigue type movies. Even with some of the larger names like Ant-Man Quantumania, for example, did not perform well. Thor Love and Thunder did not do well critically. I don't know too well about the box office numbers for each, but it would be shocked if they did well, just with the general vibe of everything. But in my opinion, this is two good MCU movies in a row, with Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts before that. So it kind of feels like we're on the way back. It kind of feels like they're returning to what they used to do. The quantity is much fewer and further between. The next Marvel movie doesn't come out for a year. They were on a track there for a while of 4 or 5 movies a year, which is crazy. And there's not as much emphasis on quality when you're just pumping out as many movies as possible. And I think some things that really helped, this movie felt really fresh. It had that kind of retro futuristic 60s aesthetic, and it felt separate from the rest of everything that's going on. It was a movie that you could watch independently, and you wouldn't have to know anything from anything that came before it, because it's totally new, it's totally fresh. And I think that is a real emphasis for them. And I think they used a good cast, right? They cast well. Obviously, you have Pedro Pascal's and everything, literally in 3 movies in theaters right now: Materialist, Fantastic Four, and Eddington. You have Vanessa Kirby, she's fantastic. Joseph Quinn, he's great, lovable guy. And then Eben Moss-Backrack, who is obviously in The Bear. He's phenomenal in that show. And, the cast complements each other very well. That's all I'll say. But yeah, I'll go ahead and hand this off to Carson for the second headline.
Yeah, so I mean, to continue Marvel skipped the San Diego Comic-Con. This is the first time they've done this in over a decade. No announcements, and this almost seems like it was very strategic, because this is the same week that Fantastic Four dropped. So they really just wanted to focus like all their attention and not draw away the audience's attention from Fantastic Four. So they really wanted to create the buzz for Fantastic Four rather than any other announcements that they have. And I think this definitely brings a lot more attention to the movie, and it kind of brings back that idea that like Marvel doesn't really need to say too much about what they're doing, because they're already so big that like people are gonna be interested in what they're doing and look and seek to see what they're doing rather than wait for an announcement. So I think it's just cool that they don't need to really create buzz. It just kind of happens naturally, and people want to find out what's next on the list. And I think that's something kind of like what we want to get to, is where we want the audience to almost be searching out and like interested in what we're doing next, rather than us trying to like market ourselves. Obviously, we want to market ourselves and create hype, but I think at some point we want the hype to be natural and not like something that we almost have to like create ourselves. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to our next headline here, we have A24 teases their push into sci-fi, horror, and animation. Oh, this is really cool. So A24 recently announced an upcoming slate with an emphasis on expanding their genres. So they want new animated features, larger scale, more VFX heavy sci-fi projects, and a continued focus on the kind of auteur horror like they've had with Talk to Me and then most recently Bring Her Back, which both critically did very well. And I believe that the Philippou brothers, I think is their names, they are going to continue being a stalwart in the A24 horror production wing for quite some time. They're very creative, and I can kind of sense that they're building almost a world of sorts where creepy stuff just happens, like that. So, um, you know, for me, I think this is a good move for A24. Expanding your horizons is something that every production house is met with if they want to continue to scale and grow and serve more people and get their products and services in front of more people. Um, Now, the bad thing is if you're not careful, this can lead to brand dilution, right? If Bloomhouse were to suddenly start making romantic comedies instead of like horror focused things, they would start to lose touch with the brand that they built for being known for that kind of meta horror comedy type of movies that they've been releasing for some time. Similarly, A24 has kind of always been on that almost art house feeling, general auteur aesthetic. So if they start expanding into movies like what's a good sci-fi movie I could even reference, like Star Trek or something like that, is that going to feel like an A24 movie? Not necessarily, but I imagine there will still be that distinct feel because I just watched the unicorn movie, The Death of a Unicorn last night. It's on HBO Max now. So I watched that last night and it was definitely like a sci-fi kind of paranormal movie, like a magic creature and there's a lot of lore and stuff like that, but it still felt like an A24 movie. You could kind of tell what you were watching despite it being kind of more fantastical, like The Legend of Ochi and things like that, Marcel the Shell. So A24 is kind of eventually going to operate like a mini studio with franchises. I think they can build stuff up. Obviously, their biggest hit to date is Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a phenomenal movie, but you don't want to milk that further than they kind of already have with all the merch and auctions and all that kind of stuff. And it was their first big, like, oh yeah, this is good, people love this. Not that their other stuff wasn't, but so the key takeaway here is kind of balancing your identity versus the reach. And the biggest thing to be careful of is, like, obviously once you get to a point, if you don't have the systems in place to kind of remain independent, you just become a major studio player. And that's not easy to do, right? Like, that's not something that every studio is having a problem with, but one like A24, which is just experiencing hyper growth, their fan base is like really loyal and almost cult like. There's potential there for them to grow into something that big. And once you do so, you start having to make things more commercial and you lose what kind of made your films valuable in the first place. So that's what I'm talking about when I mean like balancing the identity versus reach. You don't want to sacrifice who you are as a production house just to serve more people. You want to serve more people with who you are. You want to broaden your reach while still maintaining your core identity. And I think that's going to be really important for us as we continue to move forward. I think you'll see, like, despite every movie not being the same genre or premise, there's going to be a distinct feel for off-bin movies as well. It won't be as visually in your face as A24's or dialogue wise or anything like that. But there will certainly be signs like, oh, I'm watching an off-bin movie. And they're going to be directed by different people, written by different people, shot by different people. But there's going to be some cohesion, not top down like we're forcing that, but I think just the types of things we pick up and the way that we decide to tell these stories, there's going to be some sort of commonalities. And the idea is not to grow so big that we reach everybody, but we have to produce stuff that maybe doesn't fit that mold. The idea is that we can make stuff that fits that mold and reach as many people as possible doing that and building the platforms and infrastructure and outreach and everything to reach those people. But yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Carson for the next headline.
And yes, Apple Original Films has confirmed that Ridley Scott, Pompeii 2045 will receive a wide theatrical run before hitting Apple TV Plus. This film is set in a dystopian Roman future and stars Paul Mescal. This makes Apple one of the only streamers still heavily investing in a theatrical run as part of its long-term strategy. I think this is really cool because, I mean, if you look at F1, it's still in theaters and it's just surpassed 500 million. So I think that's something that they're looking to do with this movie as well. And then after they are out of theaters, it just goes straight to Apple TV Plus. And it's something that you can easily rewatch again. I know I'll definitely be rewatching F1 again at some point, just because I really like the film. But hopefully this is something that can be similar, because Apple is killing it in film and TV. I mean, we've definitely reviewed some of their TV shows. I know the studio we've reviewed. I don't know if we've reviewed any of the others. I know we've talked about most of them, but maybe not reviewed them, So I think this is something that often can do sometime something in the future where we have our own streaming platform. And I know at some point we might go straight to just strictly streaming, but at the end of the day, we love watching films in theaters and definitely want to see our films on the big screen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in the theatrical model. But moving on to our next one, our final one here. So Netflix is testing a live director mode. I say that with like air quotes for interactive viewing. So they quietly kind of released a beta feature that will allow viewers to toggle between alternate camera angles, different versions of different takes, and maybe even like different line readings in real time while they're watching a scene. It's kind of like a choose your own edit type of thing. It's obviously in the early stages and extremely limited, but it kind of signals to us where interactivity and customizability is going with film and TV content. So to me, I don't like this. I'll be honest. I think film is an art form and it's a medium in which you get to tell a story. The point of it is to resonate with people, but there's also something deeply personal about what you create, the cut that you have, and that might not be the case with big studio films where they have to cut to fit certain commercial appeals and they do the test screenings and this and that. The director obviously loses some control there, but to me, I think it's more of a gimmick, right? Like the director cuts things, shoots things, makes people say things a certain way so that the film matches what they are trying to accomplish or what they're trying to do with it. Um, and this same with their work with the editor, the sound mixer, all that kind of stuff. It's all done very intentionally, from the first frame to the last. It's all done very intentionally to come across a certain way to resonate with a certain person. And not every film is good. I'm not saying that at all. But that's the beauty of it. Like it's up to us to decide if we like a film or not. But if we just have infinite customizability, that makes everything that doesn't conform to that infinitely harder because the audiences are going to be used to like click clack click clack. And also that's really no way to watch a movie, right? When I'm watching a movie, I'm watching it to see what they put on the screen. I'm locked in, I'm focused. If I have a remote in my hand and I'm like playing like choose your own path type Walking Dead's Telltale type game where I just like choose a thing and then it like affects what happens later on, like that's a game. That's not a movie. So you're talking about an entirely different medium here. And you might lose some of the tension or the pacing. And say you did that, you chose the wrong things that you thought you would like, but it actually turns out bad, and now you have a negative interpretation of a film that would have been good if you had just left it alone. There's a lot of danger there. Overall, I think this is bad. I appreciate Netflix's kind of innovation on that side of things and trying to stay tech forward and relevant as a streamer and obviously a production house now. But I really hope that they don't make this something beyond like a Black Mirror. There's really no place for it beyond that. But we'll
It,
close. Oh,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like it really just like takes away the control from the director and makes production even harder because you have to come up with all these different like obviously they're probably shooting them already, but it really creates a lot more stress on what needs to be shot and what needs to be like perfect. And if a shot isn't perfect, you have a different camera angle, you use that and in post rather than, it's just like it's the little stuff that matters. And I think this really creates a lot more stress on the whole production. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna make everyone's life a lot harder. And then the audience, I mean, this almost seems like it's something to where they really want the audience's kind of choice in what's gonna make a good film. And I feel like that's a cool idea, but that's almost like you should do that before you release the movie, and then at that point, like that almost like what's even the director doing at that point because they're not really directing and choosing what they want in the film. It's more about the audience, and obviously you want the audience's feedback, but the director is really there to have the final say. So
Yeah, no, this is actually something I meant to bring up. Like exactly what you said. If you're trying to incorporate the audience into the final product, you should do that before the final product is done. You shouldn't give them a bunch of random clips and tell them like, "Hey, splice this together however you'd like it." That puts too much onus on the audience. They don't always know what they want. So it's up to the production houses to know what they want before they know what they want. And how do you do that? By piecing together other things they like, by listening to them, by incorporating feedback where it makes sense, but not listening to everything. You got to be selective. You can't make everybody happy. So there's a lot of different layers to this. And I think it's good to want to involve the audience. And we're all about that here. Like I said, we're building platforms and tools. And, we have our membership where you can join our Discord and we're going to have regular polls in there on story decisions and things like that. But we don't want to spoil too much. So it's like, it's a fine line, right? Like, would we let the audience decide if a character died in high stakes? You know, there's been times where this worked with like comic books and Jason Todd back in the Batman and Robin, you know, fans didn't like him, so they killed him off. They voted for him to die in the comic. But like, does that really work with a movie? No, because A, you're spoiling a major component of the film before it even comes out. And B, it's like, why? Just make the decision and make the one that you think the audience will like the most. And you can't get everything right. It's just not how it happens. But part of a good film is just trusting your intuition and building something that you would want to see as an audience member, and hopefully it resonates with other people as well. And it won't always, but I think if you follow that kind of pathway, it will in a majority of the cases. But we will go ahead and wrap up the industry headline segment there and get into our second segment, which is our game. Today it's called Take Two. So the concept is myself and Carson will take turns giving each other a badly explained movie logline, and then the other person has to guess what film that is based on that. So we each have 4 of these, and we're going to alternate. And again, it's just we're going to say the logline. It's going to be badly explained. It's not going to be the official one. The other person then has to guess what it is. I'm going to throw you an easy one, Carson, for the first one here. Okay. And before we get there, the loser has to look up a cringy letterboxed review and read it in a dramatic voice on this podcast. So whoever loses, whoever gets, you get 1 point if you get it correct, and no points for misses. You get 1 guess. Okay. The loser will have to go and read a letterbox review that's cringy. You got to find one on any movie, doesn't matter, and read it in a dramatic voice. So here we go. First one. I'm going to throw you a softball here. This is easy. Slow pitch. A talking tree, a raccoon, and their friends fight a giant purple guy over some shiny rocks.
I know it's Avengers. I know it's Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's Avengers. It's not Endgame. It's the one before Endgame. Damn, this is terrible. Wow, that's embarrassing. Why am I blanking on on the Avengers? Wow, I think time's up.
Yeah, dude, that's tough. It was Avengers Endgame, so yeah, but it's fine. It could have been Infinity War too, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Okay, hit me with your first one.
Okay. A small town struggles to close its beach because of one fish is being kind of a jerk.
Jaws?
Yeah.
That is a good one. I like that. All right, I got you with the second one here. A quiet guy makes friends in prison, plays chess with the warden, and eventually ghosts everyone.
It has to be Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, sir. I knew you.
Hey, let's go.
I wanted to throw you that one because I know you like that movie.
You know, the first one that's like when you're taking a test and you know the answer and you switch the answer, I should have just stuck with the first answer. I don't know what I was thinking on that.
It looks like you're going to be reading that letterbox review, buddy.
I don't know. Maybe these are too easy, but yeah, you might win on this. Okay, my next one is a wealthy man invites scientists to an island zoo with trust issues.
Jurassic Park.
Yep. Yeah, these are too easy.
That's crazy. Okay. I'll get you this one then. An aging pilot breaks every rule in the book to prove speed still matters more than politics.
This is definitely Captain Sully.
It's Top Gun Maverick, buddy.
Oh, I was thinking of yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking of when he had to save you know what I'm talking about? When he crashes in the Hudson River. Yeah. Damn, be like that. Okay, the next one is a father takes his family on the worst vacation ever and becomes an Axe influencer.
The Shining. Let's go. Too easy. 3 for 3, boy.
At this point, I'm lost.
Yeah, it's all right, though. We can get through our last 2. All right, this one's good. A bunch of bullied kids realize their small town is haunted by a shape-shifting child's worst nightmare.
Shape-shifting child?
No, the child's... I said that like weird. By a shape-shifting children's worst nightmare. Like the child's worst nightmare, and it can shapeshift.
I'm assuming this is... Wait, no. This has to be a film, right?
It's a film, yeah.
Damn.
I know you've seen it.
I don't know, because like the first thing I'm thinking of is Stranger Things, but it's obviously not Stranger Things.
That would be a show, my friend.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked if it was a film.
No, you're good. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're going to be mad. It's It Chapter 1, boy.
I have seen that one. I have seen that film.
That's crazy.
It's been a while, though, so... Okay, this next one, super easy. Like, if you don't get this, a teen travels through time, nearly dates his mom, and invents rock and roll.
Back to the Future.
Yes.
Easy. This dude's got to read a letterbox review. What movie you gonna do? You got to go find one.
Oh gosh. Let's see. Let me pull up a letterbox. What do you think I should do?
You got to do a controversial movie like Donnie Darko or something, where some people love it and some people hate it. I guess that's more like widely liked, but still. There's some
What did you
cringy ones on there for sure. You'll find some easy ones. I said Donnie Darko, but you can do whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
I'll just do Donnie Darko. Released in 2001. This is literally as old as us.
Yeah, you should. Dude, I found one. You should do the one that's like me at a party.
Oh, okay. Like one of the top ones.
Yeah.
So you want me to read like me at a party?
Yeah, you got to be
Okay.
dramatic. You got to say it funny with a funny voice.
Okay, I'll have one drink. Me after said drink. First of all, Papa Smurf didn't create Smurfette. Gargamel did. She was sent in as Gargamel's evil spy with the intention of destroying the Smurf village. But the overwhelming goodness of the Smurf way of life transformed her. And as for the whole gangbang scenario, it just couldn't happen. Smurfs are asexual. They don't even have reproductive organs under those little white pants. That's what's so illogical, about being a Smurf. What's the point of living if you don't have a dick?
Dude, out of context, that sounds horrible, but it's a line in the movie. I swear. Go watch Donnie Darko if you haven't seen it. And also, that wasn't our words either. It was a letterbox review. YouTube, don't ban us, please. But yeah, everybody, that was our game of the week. Now we get to dive into our main topic of discussion today. We like to call it our meat and potatoes segment, where we're going to touch a little bit on who should control the story, the director or the audience. So I know we kind of already touched on this basically already with the live director news headline that we just touched on for Netflix, but I'm kind of rewinding on that. Netflix, they launched the live director mode. They're letting viewers switch between alternate takes or angles in real time. But meanwhile, we kind of see other studios like Apple and A24, they're investing in more theatrical linear storytelling, like movies and TV. The rift and the split is kind of widening, and the chasm is widening as there continues to be more diversion from one side to the other. So is the future of film more passive viewing or interactive? And that's kind of what we want to talk about today. There's a few key topics we want to cover, but, we'll go through them one by one here. So the first one is kind of the creative intent. So, does letting audiences edit disrupt the rhythm of a performance or a scene? And this is kind of what we were already talking about, right? Like, yes, if a scene was meant to be viewed a certain way, it was very intentionally placed that way. If you're giving the audience the ability to edit in real time, there's a very high likelihood that they are not going to be a professional editor or filmmaker or anything along those lines, just a general viewer, and they're going to put something where it shouldn't be. And then it's not going to be as good or emotionally resonant or anything like that. I mean, I guess, what do you think, Carson? Like, if you were just able to like click through and move things around while you were watching Netflix, like, that's a terrible idea, right? Am I bugging for that?
I feel like it would take away from the actual film. Like I would be too worried about like, oh, well, what else could I be like? I feel like I would never finish a film. It's like you're never going to see the ending. Like there's always going to be a different ending. And like you said earlier, it's almost like a game, like where you can have like the different options and you can go through and like in that sense that's a cool, like in essence, it's cool. Like it's a cool idea. But for film, I just don't think it's ever going to really shape up to what like people want it to be. And it's going to take away from the whole like film aspect, and it's not going to have the same feel of what films are. So I don't think I'll like it or ever try it, but I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the point where it's like decision fatigue is a real thing. It's easy to be overwhelmed when you're going to watch a film or a TV show. The kind of beauty of it is that it's pre-decided. What's on there is on there. You're going to get the same thing as everybody else, and it's going to be consistent. This is good for a few different reasons. A, film and TV is usually kind of used as an escape, a way to just sit there and absorb content without having to actively do anything. And B, you get to talk about what you saw with other people. Think about how opinions are going to vary if everybody watches the same thing in a totally different way. There's going to be a lot of difference of thoughts and everything with that, and it's going to cause a lot of issues, and that's a very real thing. So to me, it's like, at what point does this almost create more anxiety than immersion, or overwhelm the user, or create too much fatigue making those decisions versus just enjoying what's in front of them and appreciating the artist's craft, that the work that went into creating it, and the performances from the actors and the score and the composing and all the different things that went into putting what's in front of you. It strips a lot of the beauty away, but it also strips a lot of the pleasantness away and out of the situation. Like it makes it less easy to just sit down and enjoy it, you know? So
Yeah, like you said, you can't enjoy something that like you don't know exactly what you want to watch almost, you know? So it's like you keep like editing it, and like I said earlier, it's like you'll never finish it because like there's so many different options, and like you'll get caught up in what like you want to change rather than just sitting down and enjoying the movie.
yeah, exactly. And, there's also like, where's the line between engaging the viewers and the users, in Netflix's case, and then kind of eroding the authorship behind the movie, like the work that went into it and the artist who created art, and you're just kind of taking that over. It honestly, I think the line is not that fine. There's a very deliberate choice being made here on Netflix's side to say, hey, I want the audience to be able to mix and match everything, full customizability. Out the wazoo. And what's that going to lead to? Art is art, and these communities are built around movies by the people that watch them. The more people that watch and enjoy a film, the better that film's going to do, because they're going to go home and be like, "Oh, dude, you got to watch Avengers: Infinity War. It was sick. Like I've never seen anything like it," or stuff like that. But like, if everybody's watching a different thing, how are you even supposed to take anybody's word for it, right? Like, you don't know how exactly they edit it. Are we going to have a button to share your exact edit? Okay, well then, it's like basically TikTok at this point. Like, we're working towards what exactly? What is the end goal? But as a small studio, often, we want to dabble in interactive content, but we definitely don't want to sell out our vision and the art we want to put forth. So I think the interactive stuff will be limited to interactive stuff. We're going to very intentionally have some things that are meant to be interactive, meant to be take it your own pace or do it your own style, but they are not going to be our flagship feature films and TV shows. We're not going to just let the audience mix and match however they want, because there's no community to be built there. It's cannibalizing, especially for small studios like this, where community is everything, to make everything so individualistic. You're never going to have a real community that way, because there's nothing to bond over. There's nothing to gather around. Everybody's consuming something, even marginally, everyone's consuming something different. But, we're very tech forward people. We have our off bend kind of labs. Would we ever explore something like this for bonus scenes or alternative endings or director's cut, director's commentary, enablement, stuff like that? Of course, like whatever's going to make the audience's viewing experience better, we will offer it. But the caveat being, we're not going to sacrifice the director's vision, the studio's vision. We're not going to compromise on any of those things, because that is what we valued and that's what we put out, and that is how we wanted it to be presented. But yeah, I mean, like we said, Carson, like, would you ever let viewers, and these aren't spoilers, like these are just random lines, so don't read into this, but like, would you ever let viewers choose if Sal dies or not in High Stakes, or whether or not Adam becomes a corrupt cop, or like, where's the red line? Like, what would you allow the users or the audience to kind of describe or choose?
No, it kind of depends. Like if it's something like we see could be a good option, like yeah, we'll use that note, but at the end of the day, like we're trying to create the film based off of our vision, and it's hard to kind of like pick and choose which one. Like I'm sure we get so many notes that like at some point like somebody's gonna get upset that we didn't take their note. So like it's really just about like picking and choosing what like works and what like doesn't, and really trying to like separate those to see like, oh, could this work? And then like I feel like we could in a sense like take a note from the audience, but at the end of the day, like we have the last say. So it's almost just based off of what we feel works with what we're trying to do with the film in general. Like, obviously, something as like it would be big in the movie essence almost, but based off of like the big like picture film, it might be like something super small that would change the real big aspect of the film. So I think it just kind of depends. It's really subjective almost on like what they're trying to have us change. And yeah, if it's something where we ask the audience like what they want to see or like what they want to change before we release it, then yeah, like we'd really be interested in taking their note.
Right, but that's kind of like my point, right? Like, the buck stops with us. Like, if we get feedback and a lot of people want something, we will work in our best efforts to incorporate that and maintain the same feel and story that we wanted to have originally. But once you change your work past a certain point, you're losing what your work was before and you're losing what made it great. And again, like I mentioned, the audience doesn't always know what they want. The audience doesn't always know exactly what they're looking forward to. You, as the creative, have to kind of predict that and know, like, oh, this is going to kill. Like, people are going to love this. Even if when you describe it, they're not, because they won't know until they see it up on the screen. And they're going to either love it or hate it. And that's just what you got to live with.
I think I think we would kind of like almost want to say that like we're not saying this could like this can't work, and like some people may enjoy this and really like want this to be a thing, but for us it's almost like as film watchers ourselves, like we want to like create something for the audience to watch and enjoy and not have that, I don't know, almost stress of like, oh well, what should I decide? Like, you know what I'm saying? We're deciding for them so they can just enjoy it. It's something that like they go to watch this movie as a stress reliever or to not think about daily life and like really put themselves in the film. And that's what we're trying to do is create that idea of just releasing their stress and having a good time enjoying the film and not having to decide too much on what they're doing. And like I said, this doesn't mean that like people won't like this, you know. Some people like to have control and want to see where this takes this, like, but it does seem like it's a game almost, and we're not trying to be that side of it. We're just trying to be creating films for people to enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's a good way to close it. But like at the end of the day, would you want to cut a Tarantino movie a different way, or was it cut already intentionally to capture Tarantino's vision? Same with Scorsese, same with James Cameron, same with Chris Nolan, same with all of the great directors like Alfred Hitchcock, Steven Spielberg. You know, these guys, they all have a distinct vision, and there's some
I think
incredible
that
films.
I think that brings up a good point is like what director is going to want to do this? Like that really takes away from their control, and it's not their movie in a sense. It's really the audience deciding what movie they want to like see, and which like isn't a bad thing. Like I said, it really takes away the control of what the director is doing.
But that's just part of art, you know? Like the director is the artist in this case, just as much as everybody else on that project. But they're the kind of the ones that have the vision and the whole project is behind them. So it should be their choice what the audience sees, especially you know, my fear is that if Netflix makes this like a big feature, they're gonna hang this over the head of people like Adam Sandler, for example, where they have multi-picture deals with them. They're gonna be like, well, we're only gonna fund this film if you do this, you know, give us these extra takes so we can give the customizability. Now, you know, are there ways this could work? Yes. If you predetermine what scenes can be cut or viewed a different way or whatever, like if you predetermine that, that's fine. But if you're letting every scene be mixed and matched and moved around and whatever, it's just a total mistake, and I don't think it should be done. Personally, I'm not really sure how they came to the conclusion that this was a good idea in the first place. But I guess that's what happens when you're a business so big that you run out of things that are actually useful to add to your app as a streamer. But that's neither here nor there. The next thing in our podcast today is our movie review segment. So you guys are going to be mad at us, but we did not watch 3 movies this time around. Honestly, at this point, I think we should just say we'll do 1 movie. And if we have more than one, then it's a bonus. Because we're good for one at minimum. I actually did watch 2 for the record. Carson didn't though, so I don't want to spoil.
I'll just say this that we're not good for one at a minimum because we've also had to review a TV series.
Okay, well, from now on, we're good for 1.
It's really iffy on if we're gonna get at least one. So I don't know.
Listen, guys, we're figuring it out, okay? We're figuring it out. We're
We're
going
doing our
as we
best.
go.
We're doing our best here, okay, guys.
This is episode 10, man. We were only supposed to make it to 7. That was the one that everyone quits. So we're beating the expectations, beating the odds. And, you know, so far, I mean, we've gotten decent feedback, I would say. I wish we had more people to interact with and talk about some of the things that we talk about because I think it's all really interesting. But regardless, I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to do. But this
You know
time
what?
we have
It's
one
it's
movie
just one foot in front of the other. You know, it's
every day.
living life at its fullest.
At its fullest, staring at the computer, talking about movies. Absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier today, in this episode, we're going to be reviewing Fantastic Four First Steps, which was Marvel's latest installment, the first installment of Phase 6 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're going to kind of dive into our reviews, our ratings on a 5-star scale, and then talk about some of the, you know, larger context surrounding the film. Obviously, it's performing well financially, as we mentioned. It's only come out 4 or 5 days ago at this point, 3, 4 days ago. So, what does this mean for the MCU going forward? How was the cast? How was the universe itself? The 1960s kind of aesthetic, all that kind of stuff. So, we'll start with overall takes. I like to reference my letterboxd reviews, but just to help me stay with my thoughts here. But I'll go ahead and give mine first, and then I'll hand it off to Carson. So, first things first, I really want to say about this is that I really, really enjoyed this movie. I like genuinely, but I have been really eagerly awaiting this since it was initially announced, like maybe 5+ years ago at this point. I don't know for sure, but from all of the casting rumors, John Krasinski and Penn Badgley, and all these guys for Mr. Fantastic, and then there was Jodie Comer as Sue Storm was in there, and all that kind of stuff. From the director change from John Watts to Matt Shackman, I followed this entire thing absolutely religiously. And, I was hyped when John Krasinski appeared in Doctor Strange and, all these things. But now that it's finally kind of here and behind me and I've seen it, it's bittersweet, right? No, it's not a bad movie, but I would be kind of remiss if I did not say it left a little bit to be desired. But let's start with the good. I'll go through and give some things that I thought were great. Number one, the cast, phenomenal. Joseph Quinn and Evan Moss Backrack did really, really great jobs in the kind of supporting roles as Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm, while obviously Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal absolutely stole the show as Reed and Sue Richards. And then we had, Ralph Ineson as Galactus was just perfect. He was awesome. The voice was incredible. Galactus looked amazing. And then Julia Garner was a really great Shala Bal, or the Silver Surfer. I was initially hesitant with some of these castings, namely Pedro Pascal and Joseph Quinn, but they both came through and felt like the characters I grew up kind of knowing and loving. I think there is a little bit of like Pedro Pascal fatigue because you do get kind of tired of seeing the same person in every movie. And it happens here and there, like every so often. That just kind of happened. Like for a little stretch there, it felt like Glenn Powell was in everything. And so on and so forth. But that's just kind of part of being a movie star, I guess. But the cast was amazing. The space scenes, which was essentially like the entire second act of the film, was really, really great. Like, I'm a huge Interstellar fan. I feel like I've mentioned that more times than I can count. There's an Interstellar-esque like black hole scene kind of in the middle of it. And it was incredible. I really loved kind of every second of all of the adventures that they had and how they felt and how it made me feel as an audience member. It was really great. The characters and their powers and abilities and how they all looked pretty good. Johnny's like flames and Ben's well Ben, I guess he was pretty all CGI, the rock thing. Sue and Reed, the invisibility and the stretchy ability. They all played really well on screen. They looked great. The VFX were awesome. And again, Galactus looked great. Silver Surfer looked great. Everything surrounding that looked awesome. There's a scene with the Silver Surfer where she's kind of like going through the dust near the black hole. That was like peak, man. I was like edge of my seat. I was so hyped watching that. The story itself was really touching. The Fantastic Four is kind of heralded as the savior of the universe. They're met with a force so powerful, so destructive that they really don't know if they can win, and you can kind of feel that bleak outlook in their presentation. They're left scrambling to find a solution. The clock's ticking. They went and tried to confront them. They failed. They came back. Oh, it's still you're cooked, man. But luckily they have some of the most brilliant minds, and namely one of the most brilliant minds, Reed Richards, in any universe to help them find a solution. There's triumph, there's failure, there's setbacks, and there's laughter. There's some touching moments with Ben Grimm and Natasha Lyonne's character. It's very much a family story. It's isolated in this universe. Like I mentioned, there's no other characters from any other Marvel movies or anything. It's only these guys. These are all like it's all new people. You don't have to have any previous experience. I really like the retro futuristic aesthetic, like I mentioned, like the 1960s kind of futuristic look. I really like the relationship between the 4 and 5 once Franklin is born, and I think overall the characters were well done. Now, diving into some things I didn't like as much. As I mentioned, I was really, really excited for this. I was over the moon excited. And kind of being naturally hyped, it can be a little bit easy to be let down in some ways. I tried to manage my expectations because I knew like, oh, I'd really been waiting for this for a long time. But some things fell a little bit short for me. First, it just felt rushed. I felt like a ton was cut out, honestly, and the story lacked a lot of substance that it could have used. It felt really quick, which is a bad thing considering it had like a 2-hour runtime. The pacing was generally pretty good, but they could have used an extra like between 10 and 30 minutes more. So some of the things obviously this affected were Johnny and Ben's kind of character arcs. You know, particularly Ben Grimm, you know, his life, you know, while he's kind of beloved and endeared to the public, it's not the same as it was before becoming the thing. And he can't do the things he was able to do before or have the normal human relationships and interactions he was able to have before. You know, this is one thing I think the early thousands Fantastic Four movies did really well with Michael Chiklis. You know, the scenes with Ben Grimm were always super touching, especially in the first Fantastic Four film. But here we get a couple of scenes humanizing him, but nothing really too crazy. And it didn't hit the same mark for me. The same can kind of be said about Johnny. I mean, he had a little bit more redeeming moments where he had the whole translation portion of the film towards the end with the Silver Surfer's language and, you know, his ability to kind of turn Shalabal against Galactus and everything. But still, he was still felt like sort of a shallow character. And the story lacked because of all this too, you know, like some parts of it really felt wishy-washy. There wasn't a lot of proper build-up. It felt after the initial sequence of like expository stuff on the talk show, it immediately flung them into conflict, where there was kind of no feeling of subtle triumphs in between. It was doom and gloom the rest of the time, no pun intended. There was no false victories or anything like that where they can come back and say, oh, we did this. And then it's like, oh, no, we didn't. There was one when they put Galactus through the portal and then he kind of came back, but it wasn't even like a big deal, like because he was beat 2 seconds later. You know, it can work, but it didn't land for me the best. In this case, the universe full of like whimsy and color. I just expected the stakes to be good, but there's still to be enough like uplifting and bright energy. But all of this is not to say I didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't what I'd hoped 100%, if that makes sense. Overall, it's still a great movie. It looks amazing. It's absolutely worth going to see. And with after all of that, I'm going to give this a 4 flat out of 5 stars.
Okay. I gave it around the same. I think I said a 4.1. Yeah, I think I pretty much enjoyed the same. I think the one thing that you talked about was like the black hole scene where she's like Silver Surfer is like basically surfing through the space, and like there's a scene where she goes through the rocks that are like being sucked into the black hole, and it like it's she's going in the middle of them. It's so cool. Yeah, the things that I didn't really enjoy was like there were a couple points of CGI that were like you could notice. It's one of those things where it's like the background, like so it's like the focal point was like on different characters, but there was one scene that I remember like looking over at Ben. His name is the Thing, right? Like that's what that's his
Yeah. The
okay,
character
so
name.
basically the Thing is holding the baby, Franklin. You could just like see the CGI, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And then a little bit when Galactus is holding the baby too, but I mean, that's just such a big like object holding just such a tiny, little baby. So it's like it's kind of hard to make that look practical in a sense, but I mean, it's just like the little stuff. So like that's why I gave it such a good rating because I really did enjoy it. I really enjoyed like seeing the setup of like, oh, this is how they were astronauts and this is how they got their powers, and then coming back and trying to find their way with their new powers, and Reed just being so smart that he figures everything out, like he thinks of all the things that's going to happen, like good or bad. And that's kind of one of those plot lines where he like thinks way too much, and Sue kind of gets upset at him because he's thinking way too much and he can't really help it. That's just like who he is. And he even has a scene where he's talking to Franklin where he's like, "Don't be me," basically. And I don't know, it's kind of weird because like in a sense, like he's Franklin's a baby, but like he's so all powerful that like who knows if he can understand, like it's definitely interesting to see. And then they almost at the end, like when I don't want to spoil it too much, so I don't want to say that one.
The end
But yeah,
credit
I
scene?
no 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 no. I was gonna say the thing after they pushed Galactus through the portal, and but like I don't want to. I'm not trying to spoil too much.
That's fair. I feel like I already spoiled that, but it's fine. Hopefully they didn't listen.
No, you didn't say what I was gonna say. They already know that Galactus gets pushed through the portal or whatever, but I don't want to say like the other part.
Oh, I know
You know
what
what
you're
I'm
gonna say.
saying? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. So you give it a 4.1. Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. I think it's something that like it really is. It's almost like a standalone movie. Like obviously, it pushes you to like be interested in more Marvel films, but it's not one of those films that really like wants you to be like leaves you on. It's not a cliffhanger, like it's really its own standalone film. Like it, and compared to the other like Fantastic Four films, like it's top notch. It can't really be compared to the other Fantastic Four films. you can sort of compare it to the other Marvel films that have been released recently and kind of base it off of that. But at the end of the day, like it's really its own film, and yeah, I that's why I gave it such a high rating.
Did you like Thunderbolts better or Fantastic Four?
I would say Fantastic Four just because like Thunderbolts had a lot more like awkward dialogue and like almost what's the word I'm thinking of? Like cringy. Like it had a lot more cringy dialogue and like
It was a
I
lot
mean
more
it does
funny though, in my
it
opinion.
doesn't help that like the characters are cringy in
Oh
Thunderbolts, you
yeah.
know, like that's just who they are, you know? And so
That's
like
kind of like
you
the
can't
whole Misfits appeal, right?
yeah, you can't like blame the actors because that's literally like their job to act that way, and so it's almost like some of the writing kind of takes you off of it. But yeah, I liked Fantastic Four better just because it really is its like own standalone film. Like obviously Thunderbolts like wraps up, but I think they're both like you said they're all both almost really rushed in what like the
Yeah,
pacing,
I
but
almost feel like that part was worse with Fantastic Four. Like in my opinion, sorry to interrupt, but like I think Thunderbolts was a better like from my perspective, who has seen all the Marvel movies and knows everything that's going on. I like Thunderbolts a little bit better, maybe, but I still think Fantastic Four was really good.
I think for me, I'm just like I really like the OG Fantastic Four. And so I think just seeing it like revitalized with this and like it connect with like the Marvel universe that we're like in right now, it really kind of plays a huge part in like me liking it. But I mean, other than that, it's like I said, it's really its own standalone film. Like you don't even have to connect it to Marvel besides like the after credit scenes.
What do you? I'll get to the after credit scene in a second. We'll do a spoiler alert before we talk about it. But before we get there, what do you like better between Superman and Fantastic Four? Kind of the other big ticket superhero film of this month.
I don't know, that's a tough one. I guess just like the whole reset with Superman, like they really wanted to kind of like start its own thing with this new actor, and I feel like it's fresh, you know, it really brings DC kind of back to life. Not to say that like DC hasn't had a couple good films, but compared to Marvel, Marvel just tops DC right now in films, you know. So it's definitely harder to judge that in a sense between DC and Marvel, but I think Superman just has that newer, fresher feel than anything Marvel can do, I guess. But I mean, the new Fantastic Four definitely felt like it felt new because just based off of how many Fantastic Fours have been released. But
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like I had the same issue where I had really high expectations for Superman, and I went into it, and I didn't, I gave it a really good review last week because it was a really good movie. But I think I like Fantastic Four just a little bit better. Superman was kind of marketed as this, like, oh, this is a total return to the roots of the heroes, and this is going to be like totally different than everything we've been seeing, and this and that, and this and that. It came away to me feeling a little bit cartoonish, which is not a bad thing. It's what they're going for. But I hope that James Gunn is honest and when he says that like each movie has a distinctive tone, because if you try to make Batman the same way they made that Superman movie, it's not going to land well. And we already talked a little bit about this, and my point of view is like I hope Pattinson is the Batman because I think the tonal disparity there between the Superman movie and then Matt Reeves is the Batman is perfect. It perfectly captures that duality, that kind of rift between Bruce and Clark and how they interact and the types of worldviews that they come from and everything. But it's hard for me to judge Superman on its own as a film until I see what they do with everything else. But by itself, it is a good film. I think the thing that Fantastic Four did really well is that it positioned everything really well to go forward, which leads me into my next topic. And this is a spoiler alert. If you listen further, you will be spoiled on the post credit scene or the mid credit scene of Fantastic Four First Steps. Spoiler alert, I'll give you 3 seconds to click off. Three, two, one. All right. So going into that mid credit scene, obviously it was Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm, and then an older, I think it was 4 years later, an older Franklin Richards is reading a book. She goes to get a book for him. You hear a noise. She comes back, and there's Doctor Doom. You don't see his face, but you do see his mask. He has his robes on. They were kind of teasing him throughout the whole movie when they kept showing like the Latveria at all the congressional hearings and stuff. Like obviously he's from Latveria. He's the leader of Latveria. I'll be honest, man. I was hyped to see him, Doctor Doom. I was hyped to see him, but like this scene was not that impactful to me. I'll tell you why for a few reasons. A, he didn't say anything or do anything. We just saw him, which I'm not expecting him to give a friggin' monologue, right? Like, I think it's his post credit scene, but like we've heard Blade say more words than that, and his movie hasn't even come out yet. Like at the end of Eternals, like we hear Mahershala Ali's voice. We didn't hear Robert Downey Jr.'s voice, assuming that's exactly like who that's supposed to be, if that's the right Doctor Doom or not. Like, multiverse, you never know. But the second reason is the mask. It looked like it came from Party City. It did not look good. It did not look like a high quality mat. Like it looked like they straight up went and bought like a silver mask from Party City and just like, yeah, hold that. Bro.
I really didn't even notice it. I was more looking at Franklin in the scene because it almost looks like he's healing Doctor Doom's face.
Yeah, because Doctor Doom's face is technically supposed to be like deformed because he got like a little scratch and then he put the mask on because he was so disgusted and like thought he was hideous. But like his mask was like obviously forged metal. So like while it was still hot, he put it on his face and then it like screwed up the rest of his face. At least that's one iteration of it. I thought it was cool for what it was. Did it hit the mark for me? Probably not, I would say. But what did you think? Like, did you think it was a good scene? Like, are you hyped for Doomsday from that? Like, I don't think it did much for me. Like, I was just like,
I don't know, like it kind of confuses me because like obviously in the end of the Thunderbolts, we see the post credit scene is the Fantastic Four ship. And then for this post credit scene in Fantastic Four, we see Doctor Doom. But is that going to be Robert Downey Jr.? Is like you said in the multiverse, is that a different Doctor Doom? Because at this point, like the timelines don't add up. Because they're set in you said the 60s, 70s, and so unless if that Earth is just behind 20 like 40 years, then I guess that would make sense to where because like the Fantastic Four ship can travel very fast. Like we saw it in the film, and when they're in space, like they could literally get anywhere in less than a day. So like I don't know. It's just like very confusing on how everything is going to add up, and if that is the Doctor Doom from the Thunderbolts and the Marvel Cinematic, like what's going on right now. I don't know. I'm just like I said, I'm confused. I don't know too much about where they're going to go with this, but I guess in all, like I'm intrigued because I'm confused from it. So I don't know if that's like what they were going for, but I'm definitely interested.
yeah, I think the idea is that something happens to Franklin or Doctor Doom tells the Fantastic Four something or something like that that makes them go to the Earth. So that scene with Doom probably happens before they leave to go to our universe. The one thing I'm really interested in is to see how they kind of interact with people from our like more modern day type of
Yeah.
atmosphere. I think that'll be cool. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was cool. But like, I've been waiting years to see Doctor Doom since they first started having rumors about him being in the post credits for like Wakanda Forever and everything. Like that was years ago now, and that was our first look. We didn't even get to see anything other than that crappy mask that just did not look good. But that's fine. I'm being maybe overly critical here. I know what the intention was, but that's all right.
So, I have a question for you. So, Sue, in some of the comics, she becomes evil, right? And like, What's that character's name? It's like something with an M, like
Namor?
I don't know. But anyways,
Mephisto?
yes, I saw something that like Vanessa Kirby said that she really wants to act as that like character. So that'd be interesting if Marvel decides to bring that side of it and how that would really work with what's going on in the universe right now. But I just thought that was interesting to kind of I don't know, just bring more interesting ideas to what's going on with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, there's a lot you could do, right? And that's one thing I think DC's doing good is they have the whole Elseworlds thing, but like I think we need to take extra care to make sure that we're telling stories that people actually are interested in seeing. Not everything has to be connected. You can make things that are just on their own, but like if it's on its own, it has to be like marketed as such. Like this Fantastic Four film could exist by itself, but it is still connected and there's signs that it is. But like the Elseworlds tales in DC is going to be stuff that's like totally unconnected from everything else. They will never cross paths, which is what they're saying the Batman with Robert Pattinson is. It's like its own universe, its own world. But that's the thing. There's like infinite versions of everything out there. That it's the easiest explanation for anything. It's like so easy for them to be like, oh yeah, that's just like an alternate Earth. And then if they change their mind later, it's like a snap of a finger to bring him back. But it's whatever. What did you think of the cast? Like, did you think Pedro, Vanessa, Joseph, and Evan were good?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Ben, it's kind of hard to like really judge because like pretty much it's just his voice and it's all CGI. So I mean, I'm sure like when they're acting, he's standing there, and so they have so like a reference point to look at and all this and that. But
I think he did mocap, yeah. So he would have been like wearing the suit, like the
yeah,
motion capture.
so it's a little different than like him being there. And I mean, obviously he was there, like you just said, but like just him like acting. Normally, it's a little different. I think for that, like, I think he did a pretty good job. I don't know. I liked it. I don't think there was anything that I would change based off of the cast. So yeah, I don't think. I mean, like you said, like Pedro's in everything, so sometimes it can kind of get old in a sense because he's just like so repetitive in so many different characters. But I think he's just such a good actor that like I don't think there was any other choice but Pedro for this.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And then kind of to close out, what is my takeaway here? My takeaway is that at Offbend, I really want to make a retro futuristic visual movie like this because I love the vibe and I think it's awesome. And, I think we've discussed this before, but High Stakes was originally intended to be a 70s period piece. So we're very fond of the early to mid to late 19s. We love all those time periods. Not everything about all of them, obviously, but the general aesthetic, and kind of replicating that and telling stories that don't necessarily take place today. I think obviously right now we're kind of budgetarily limited, but we also think that High Stakes was something that adapted easily. So we wouldn't have made the movie like we are now if we thought it was really going to be like measurably worse, meaningfully worse. But we think it's actually going to be a little better now just because of our frame of reference and some of the things that we're going to be able to do and accomplish. But I hope that we can make a retro kind of visual swing like this. It was awesome. I loved it. But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts on the movie before we kind of get to the last little section of kind of saying our goodbyes and wrapping things up?
I mean, just like you said, the idea of like the retro, I thought that was really cool to see, and it was kind of like new and fresh compared to what Marvel has done. Because I mean, I don't think they've really released any. I mean, there's probably a scene in Endgame where Tony goes back in time, but I mean that's just like for a short time. I guess Captain America, like when he first started out, he was in World War II, but it's just like little things where like a whole film is like a whole different idea. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. That's all I got for right now.
Yeah. So I'll close out like overall, great movie. Highly recommend you go see it if you haven't already. If you're still listening at this point and you haven't seen it, sorry for spoiling a couple things, but there's still plenty to enjoy. And it's your fault because you went past the spoiler warning.
The
But, anyways,
multiple
yeah,
spoiler warnings.
multiple spoiler warnings. But no, guys, we just want to say we really appreciate you guys joining us for another episode. We're excited to get back into the steady progress of doing these again. Carson finally got a new laptop. I think we mentioned this last time. Like that's a major for us. The reason that this is such a big deal is because Carson's old laptop, for any of you tech people out there, he had an Intel 2020 MacBook Air with 8 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of solid state storage. And it was like the lowest spec CPU that you could buy, which is fine for, college or whatever. And, fine for 5 years ago. But, the advancements, especially with the Apple silicon chips, is like incredible. And Carson, I think you would even attest to this. Like your laptop now is light years faster than your old one was. And granted, he went from like the bottom of the barrel to now he has an M1 Pro, MacBook Pro. Like that's pretty that's a pretty steep upgrade, but like, he used to just lag out all the time, which made it so I had to splice together a bunch of different clips and everything just didn't feel as fluid. I'm throwing you under the bus. I'm sorry, but it's for good reason. And then we got new microphones and everything. So regardless, we're excited to get back into this. And this is so much more smooth and I feel like we can just actually enjoy the conversation and stay more in the flow of things this way. I hope you guys enjoyed last week when we had Marshall on the pod. Sorry we didn't have anybody this week, but we're hoping to have more guests going forward. I can't say it'll be an every episode thing because there's a lot of planning behind it, but I hope we can expand to start having people even outside of Offbend to kind of hear their perspectives and things as well. So some things from us right now. High Stakes is in pre-production. We got a script pretty close to being finalized. We're working on getting some key talent attached, and we'll be able to discuss more on that soon. And we're hitting the fundraising trail hard. It's one of the hardest things that we're going to have to do in this process. And every day we're working on it. And but yeah, if you or anybody you know is interested in being a film investor, then please reach out to us at hello@offbend.com. There, I can give you all the terms and everything. Assuming that you meet the right accreditations or qualifications, and legally we're allowed to make the offering. That aside, if you'd like to support, you can go to highstakes-movie.com, learn more about the film, and there's also some donation tiers there as well. Note this is separate from a formal investment. You won't have any stake or equity in the film. Donations are just that, they're just donations, but you do get some perks in return to make it worth your while if you'd like to avoid the administrative headache. Regardless, we appreciate all the support, whether it's just leaving a like on our Instagram post, watching our podcast, buying something from the merch store, joining our OB7 membership and taking part in all the benefits we offer with that, or just interacting with us in any way, shape, or form. You know, everything counts. So, what's on the horizon? Carson's coming out here soon to Dallas, Texas, and we're going to be going on our scout trip in Austin. And then we're also going to be making some short film contents for you all to kind of get to experience a little bit of a taste of, the kind of art that we're going to be bringing to your screens, ahead of time. We've got a whole setup ready. There's a camera behind me there. That's going to be used for our short films. It's a Sony FX30, which is, not the top of the line, but it's still pretty capable. I think it's a Super 35 sensor. I love that thing. And we're working on some audio and everything. And we got lighting and softbox and everything we need to, I think, make some good stuff for you guys. And hopefully we can get some high stakes teaser materials put out as well, so you guys can kind of get the general vibe and feel of that also. But yeah, that's basically it. Please leave a review on the pod or comment or anything like that. Anything you guys would like to hear us talk about, anything that was interesting or stood out, or if you just want to continue the conversations that we were having during this episode, we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. And I'll hand it over to Carson to say his final things.
Yeah, any support. I mean, if you can't invest in Offbend, that's totally fine. Watching, listening to the pods, the liking everything on social media. That's really all the support we ask for, and we really appreciate everything. And thanks for listening. See you guys.
Thank you. Peace.